The loudest person in the room is not always the most powerful. Sometimes, the person who says the least understands the most. Niccolò Machiavelli studied human nature and discovered something most people ignore. Power does not always come from controlling the conversation. Sometimes, power comes from controlling yourself. In a world where everyone wants to be heard, the person who knows when to stay silent becomes difficult to manipulate. The first way to outsmart people is to become an observer. Most people reveal themselves through their words, their fears, their weaknesses, their intentions. But impatient people reveal nothing, because they are too busy trying to prove themselves. Machiavelli understood that a wise person listens first and acts later. Every conversation is information. Every reaction is a clue. Every emotion tells a story. When someone becomes angry, pay attention. When someone becomes defensive, pay attention. When someone tries too hard to impress you, pay attention. The person who observes human behavior gains an advantage without making a single move. The second way to outsmart anyone is mastering your emotions. Most people can control their actions until someone pushes the right button. Then anger takes over. Fear takes over. Ego takes over. A person who controls their emotions cannot easily be controlled by others. Emotional people are predictable. If someone knows what makes you angry, they know how to control you. But when you remain calm, you become unpredictable. Silence becomes your shield. Composure becomes your strength. And your enemies lose the ability to manipulate your reactions. The third way to gain power without speaking is to build presence. Your presence speaks before your words do. The way you walk, the way you listen, the way you carry yourself. People decide how to treat you before you ever say anything. Real confidence is quiet. It doesn't need attention. It doesn't beg for approval. It doesn't announce its value. The strongest person in the room is often the one who doesn't need everyone to notice. The fourth way to outsmart people is thinking before acting. Most people react immediately. They follow emotions. They reveal their plans. They move without thinking. But a strategist waits. A strategist studies. A strategist chooses the right moment. Machiavelli believed that understanding people was one of the greatest forms of power. Not because you should manipulate everyone, but because awareness protects you. When you understand human nature, you stop being surprised by human behavior. The person who controls themselves is already ahead of most people. They don't need to win every argument. They don't need to prove their intelligence. They simply understand that true power is not always displayed. Sometimes, the greatest move is knowing when not to make one. The person who speaks the most is not always the person with the most knowledge. Many people reveal themselves because they cannot handle silence. They rush to explain. They rush to defend. They rush to prove. But a wise person understands. Silence creates space. And in that space, people reveal who they truly are. The first mistake people make is believing words are everything. But words can be designed. Words can hide intentions. Words can create illusions. Actions are harder to fake. Watch what people do, not only what they say. Human beings are not always honest about their motives. Some people speak kindness while carrying selfish intentions. Some promise loyalty while preparing betrayal. This is why awareness matters. Never judge someone only by their words. Study their patterns. A calm mind sees things that an emotional mind misses. When your emotions are controlled, you notice details. You recognize patterns. You make better decisions. The person who controls their inner world has power over their outer world. Not every battle deserves your energy. Some people want your reaction. They want you angry. They want you distracted. They want you to lose control. But walking away is sometimes the strongest response. Your presence is created. Before you speak, people feel confidence. They feel insecurity. They feel desperation. Your body language tells a story. Stand with purpose. Move with patience. Let your actions introduce you. The person who controls themselves becomes difficult to control. They don't chase approval. They don't beg for attention. They don't lose themselves trying to impress others. They know their value without needing the world to confirm it. Strategy is patience. A person who only thinks about the present can be easily defeated. But someone who thinks ahead understands consequences. They don't move because they feel pressure. They move because the moment is right. The greatest advantage is understanding people. Everyone has fears. Everyone has desires. Everyone has weaknesses. Awareness doesn't mean judging people. It means seeing reality clearly. The world rewards those who understand not only how to speak, but when to remain silent. Not only how to act, but when to wait. Because true strength is not always loud. Sometimes, the most powerful person in the room is the one everyone underestimates. Most people believe power comes from being noticed. But true power comes from being respected. The person who constantly seeks attention gives others control over their emotions. But the person who is comfortable being silent shows confidence without asking for permission. Sometimes the strongest message is the one you never say. Chaos tests your character. Anyone can appear confident when everything is easy. But when pressure arrives, your true nature appears. The person who remains calm during conflict has already gained an advantage. Because emotions make people predictable. And predictability makes people easy to influence. Life is not only about making moves. It is about understanding consequences. Before you speak, think. Before you react, observe. Before you trust, understand. A strategic mind does not rush. It sees beyond the moment. The person who masters knowledge gains an invisible advantage. Because information changes how you see the world. You stop reacting blindly. You stop believing every appearance. You begin seeing patterns that others ignore. One of the greatest forms of intelligence is knowing when not to respond. Not every insult deserves an answer. Not every challenge deserves a fight. Some people throw emotions at you, hoping you will lose control. But silence protects your power. When you rise above emotion, you begin seeing the bigger picture. You understand people's behavior. You understand your own weaknesses. And most importantly, you understand that self-control is the foundation of influence. You don't become powerful by making everyone like you. You become powerful by knowing who you are. A person who needs constant approval can easily be controlled. But a person who knows their value becomes free. The goal is not to become cold. The goal is to become aware. Not to manipulate others, but to stop being manipulated. Not to control people, but to control yourself. That is where true strength begins. The person who masters silence learns to listen. The person who masters emotions learns to stay in control. The person who masters awareness learns to see beyond appearances. These skills cannot be stolen. They become part of who you are. The world is full of people trying to prove themselves. They speak louder. They react faster. They chase attention. But the person who understands human nature moves differently. They observe before acting. They think before speaking. They control themselves before trying to influence others. Because the greatest power was never about controlling the world around you. It was about mastering the world within you. That is the beginning of true strength. This is the inner climb. We explore psychology, philosophy, discipline, and the hidden laws of human nature to help you become wiser, stronger, and harder to control. Keep climbing.